Good morning. My name is Madison Motley, and I am a member of the St. Mary's class of 2019. Today, I have the honor and privilege of introducing your chapel speaker and one of my favorite classmates, Joy Jackson. When Joy first came to St. Mary's in 5th grade, we pretty much all knew her as the girl that was allergic to literally everything. When I first met Joy, one of the first things I learned about her was that she was allergic to nuts, fish, eggs, milk, cheese snacks, cake, and almost something in every food group. She not only outgrew most of those allergies, but she also became one of my best friends. Our class and the SMS community know Joy as nothing but extraordinary. Joy was always incredibly active in the SMS community, from pep club representative to the basketball team to track and senior class secretary. While Joy is nothing short of all of those things, to me, Joy was always my favorite person to laugh with and get in trouble with. While she still may be only friends with me because I graciously saved her life by preventing her from eating an entire peanut butter-filled Oreo ball, our bond blossomed into the most beautiful sisterhood that I could have ever imagined. After graduation, Joy went on to attend the University of Miami, where she obtained a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering with a double minor in biophysics and art. While attending University of Miami, Joy achieved many milestones, specifically surrounding the creation of a device aimed at addressing specific health disparities. This device has had a lot of success and was recognized in a national design competition. Joy is now pursuing a PhD in biomedical engineering through a joint program between Georgia Tech and Emory University. While in grad school, she is working in a lab that is developing implantable and wearable medical devices. Within the lab, Joy is focused on a project to develop an implant for a drug delivery. Outside of her astonishing accolades, Joy is a wonderful and intentional friend, and I can't wait to hear what she has to share with us today. So without further delay, I give you Joy Jackson.
Good morning. Thank you all for having me, and thank you, Madison, for the introduction. I'd like to talk to you all today about the importance of student-teacher relationships and how they've helped me to get to where I am now. Before I get to what to do in these relationships, I'll start with what not to do, speaking from personal experience. As Madison briefly mentioned, we got into a good amount of trouble back in the day, particularly in middle school. Several examples come to mind, but one incident from Ms. Carroll's 8th grade class takes the cake. To this day, I have no idea what possessed us to do this, but for now, I'll claim it was for the sake of science. On this particular day, Madison and I's scientific curiosity really had us itching to understand more about the Venus flytrap that Miss Carroll kept in her room. So we fed it a Skittle, and it ate it, and then it died. Madison and I were in shock, but no more than Miss Carroll herself when she saw what we had done. Miss Carroll, I'd actually like to take this time to make a public apology. I need a verbal confirmation. Do you accept? Another incident comes from when I was in Miss Bettis' 6th grade homeroom. When the school year had drawn close to Easter, Miss Bettis bought decorations and tasked us with arranging them around the room. Among these decorations was a set of decals in the shape of an Easter bunny and several Easter eggs that you could stick to the window. I decided to take the lead on these and arrange them how I saw fit. She probably assumed that a normal student would arrange the eggs next to the bunny or maybe an arc above the bunny, but that wasn't my vision. Instead, when she left the room, I arranged the eggs in a vertical line below the bunny in a way that made it look like it was ridding its bowels, if you will. I personally thought this was hilarious, but something on Miss Bettis' face told me we weren't in agreement on that thought when she saw what I'd done. She swiftly told me to take it down, and I scrambled to do so. Yet, to make matters worse, someone who I guess was inspired by my work, but hadn't heard Miss Bettis tell me to take them down, put the decals back up an hour later, word for word, bar for bar, in the exact same position as before. Although I had pleaded to Ms. Bettis that it wasn't me who did it the second time, the damage was already done. I could tell you many more stories of my middle school shenanigans, but if these two examples don't give you a glimpse into the life of middle school me, I don't know what will. I've never been a bad student academically, but I'm sure I could be a bit of a headache for some teachers who knew me then. Looking back, I don't think I gave those relationships the attention that they deserved at the time. In high school, something clicked, and I got my act together. I made the conscious effort to form meaningful connections, and I was better off for it. I not only developed new relationships with my teachers in high school, but I also tried to make up for my mistakes in middle school. I know I publicly apologized to Miss Carroll today, but the truth is Madison and I actually mailed Miss Carroll a new Venus flytrap and a bulk bag of Skittles last year. And I distinctly remember the last conversation that I had with Miss Bettis 2 years ago or so. We talked about college, how her family was, how my family was, if she was still playing tennis, and we went on and on. Without a doubt, my teachers here have been integral to my personal growth. The importance of developing meaningful student-teacher relationships is one of the most beneficial things that I learned at St. Mary's and took to the University of Miami. This proved to be especially true during my sophomore year of college. To give some context, I took a biostats class that spring that I found pretty challenging. I tried to be vocal in class when I knew what was going on, and I stayed behind after class to ask questions when I didn't. Because of this, I grew close with the professor over time and would often stick around after asking questions just to chat. Frankly, most of our conversations were about the budding Memphis versus Golden State rivalry, as he was Team Warriors and I was obviously Team Grizzlies. However, one day we had a conversation that I'll likely never forget. On this particular day, we were talking about his neuroscience research, in which he studies the brain's role in our ability to hear. Eventually, we segued to a conversation about an instance of racial bias within neuroscience that really struck me. For background, there's a medical test called an EEG that's used to measure brain activity. The test can help detect seizures, sleep disorders, dementia, brain tumors, and much more, so it's fairly common. During the test, several wires with small metal discs at the end are adhered to the scalp with a special paste. This connection between the scalp and the metal discs, known as electrodes, is crucial because that's how information from your brain is transmitted to the computer. Now, as you can imagine, hair can limit this access to the scalp. What I learned during that conversation, though, is that this unfortunately rings too true for Black participants. Afro-textured hair is characterized by thick, tightly sprung curls or coils, and its uniqueness is a source of immense pride in the Black community. But these unique characteristics translate poorly to the traditional EEG setup, since tightly sprung hair texture can prevent electrodes from adhering properly to the scalp. As a result, data from this test may be such poor quality for Black participants that it's just discarded. To say this conversation left me stunned would be the understatement of the year. Interestingly enough, I ran into this problem a few months before this conversation, but didn't think anything of it at the time. I had taken a lab the previous semester where we would measure different physiological signals like blood pressure or breathing rate each week. One week, we had to measure our brain activity with the EEG setup that I mentioned before. So I got out the wires and I tried to arrange them around my scalp with a paste, but to my surprise, when I started recording, the monitors showed little to no brain activity. Now this could have meant one or two things. I was actively in a coma, or something was up with the equipment. Fortunately, I found it was the latter once I realized the electrodes were slipping from my scalp because of my hair. Admittedly, I couldn't help but laugh as I scrambled to keep the wires attached long enough to have data for a decent lab report. After my conversation with my professor, however, my initial lightheartedness about the incident morphed into genuine concern as I realized this issue extended beyond my one credit course. After we talked, I went home that night and immediately did more digging. Not only did I find that this issue was barely being talked about, but I also found that only one person had really tried to create a device to address the problem. At this point, I said, okay, well, let me try to do something about it. During my junior year, I spent much of my time outside of class developing ideas for something that could address the issue. I designed countless prototypes, revised countless prototypes, and trashed countless prototypes until I had a final design by the end of my junior year that I was confident in. The device is essentially like a small hair clip that can house one of the metal discs needed during EEG recordings while keeping surrounding curls suppressed and out of the way. As of now, the device has been recognized by the National Institutes of Health, showcased at a tech conference on Miami Beach, and even featured in a news article on CNN. None of this would have been possible if it weren't for the relationships that I developed. It was because of my relationship with the professor that I realized this problem existed in the first place. It was because of my relationship with another professor that I was able to access the equipment to test the device. It was because of my relationship with yet another professor that word spread about the device. These relationships that I had led to the development of an idea at the age of 19, a tangible device at the age of 20, and a patent at 21. Now I'm 22 and starting my next chapter at Georgia Tech. Being in what I like to call 17th grade, I feel like I've learned a thing or two about how to best develop meaningful relationships with my teachers. And that lesson started here at St. Mary's. These relationships that you're making right now matter. And if you make the effort, they last. So, maybe think twice when it comes to killing your teacher's plants or arranging their decorations in a questionable fashion. Instead, I encourage you all to approach these relationships with grace and respect. You never know where your next conversation might lead you. Thank you.